Podcast de Latinex, la mejor conexión para tu inversión.
Bienvenidos al sexto episodio del Podcast de Latinex. Mi nombre es Manuel Batista, VP de Finanzas e Innovación, y el día de hoy tenemos para ustedes un tema sumamente especial en el marco del Hackathon Latinex, cuyo reto es acceso al mercado de capitales. Este es un reto que estamos trabajando en conjunto con Ciudad del Saber, con CAPATEC, Pandetec, CAPAMEC y Banco General, por lo cual les agradecemos a todos ustedes este apoyo en esta iniciativa. Para esto contamos el día de hoy con un tema muy especial para el episodio, el cual se llama Tokenizando al mercado de capitales, y para esto trajimos a un experto de talla mundial, que es Clarke, Head de Blockchain para CAPATEC. Bienvenido, Steven.
Gracias.
Para temas prácticos de la grabación, estaremos expandiendo el contenido en idioma inglés, por lo cual les exhortamos a que nos puedan acompañar. Steven, just to give a brief context to our listeners, can you explain perhaps the base concept of what is a crypto asset?
Sure. The crypto asset is it can be a financial instrument or a thing, but let's start with what it's based on. It's based on a blockchain, layer one blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, others, Solana, that creates digital scarcity. This digital scarcity allows us, entities, businesses, organizations, to create the issuance of a token or an asset that is uniquely identifiable in the world. This is the unique magic that we have now in the ecosystem.
Okay, and just also to clarify a misconception that I hear all the time with my peers, can you explain the main difference or how we can differentiate a crypto asset from a crypto coin, for example, or a token?
Sure. It's complicated and subtle. So the crypto assets and token, it really depends on the situation. So I specialize in blockchain technology, and in the blockchain ecosystem, we look at the tools to build crypto assets, crypto tokens, as Lego bricks to design and build crypto economic systems. You can build a token that maps to an investment. You can build a token that provides utility. You can build a token that is a meme coin like Bitcoin. It really depends on the project, the particular situation, the levels of decentralization, the intent. A lot of these things have been more formalized in this new realm of token economic systems, and there's something called token engineering, which creates formalized methods and ways of looking at designing these complex systems.
Interesting, because now that you mentioned that, I just realized that what we were discussing before, for me, if you use a token, for example, as a medium of exchange, yeah, that's a coin. But now I do understand what you're saying as, from your side, from the technical side, for you it's just a tool that gets you to the endpoint, and if you see in that way, perhaps it can be an intangible asset or something of a kind. Also, I wanted to get into the term that we were discussing earlier about the gas that you pay within these structures.
Sure. So the Bitcoin white paper, it was foundational. Ethereum recently went from proof of work to proof of stake. At the end of the day, these layer one blockchains, and later we can talk about zero knowledge proofs if you want, or ZK EVMs, and how they differ. But the main point is to provide security to the layer one blockchains. The nodes pay, or anyone doing a transaction across the nodes pay a gas fee. This is how the infrastructure is paid for. It's creating a prize for participants in the network. So blockchains are networks. They're crypto economic networks. And the consensus algorithms for the various blockchains say, hey, to operate this node, you're going to get a reward. And that reward is typically, in the case of Bitcoin or Ethereum, and there's different consensus algorithms to figure out how this happens. But to ensure that the system works, participants pay a gas fee. So there's lots of different incentives and reasons why this makes sense, but the simple part of it is that we're replacing other economic incentives with gas fees. We're asking the network participants to pay for the infrastructure by paying a small fee. In the case of Visa and MasterCard, they have a percentage that they charge. American Express charges a different percentage. The crypto networks charge a small percentage of gas fees. Now, there's some blockchains like Polygon that have really low, really very small, minute gas fees. There's a new network from the Optimism folks that has very small little gas fees, and Coinbase released Base.org, which is a optimistic platform that is really a super network of opportunities to create this really transformative opportunity for organizations trying to build very super low fee transactions for things. It's a big topic.
And I understand you have some background with AdTech. And before we were talking about how we used to monetize this ecosystem through ad revenues, but now the model perhaps is getting its last days. But it is interesting how you can match this now on a Web3 service where you are charging this gas fee for participants.
Sure. That takes me back to my days in Pasadena, California. I was a human technology duct tape building systems for Gojira.com, which later became Yahoo Search Marketing, and we were generating 90% of Yahoo's revenues. We licensed our pay-for-performance advertising technology to Google, and Google made tremendous advancements with what they were doing by monetizing advertising. Advertising, selling ads to pay for technology or pay for content became the universal way for the internet ecosystem to evolve. We have subscription-based systems, we have advertising-based systems, and we have basically that's it. To think about how we build better technologies for the future, Bitcoin, Ethereum set out to change how people, groups got together to do different things. And we built on top of principles like open source, collaboration, and incentive design. And that's where we are today with in 2023. We've had many lessons, many difficult lessons around how to both design the technologies, how to deal with regulators, how to deal with decentralization, how to deal with incentive design. There's a lot of systems that are being developed to formalize how we go about building crypto economic systems, Web3, whatever the term you want to use, but there's a lot of advancements that we've arrived at so that we can make a better future.
Yeah, for sure. So getting into that line, I don't know if you can also explain to us the difference between having an ecosystem that is public for your nodes and having an ecosystem that perhaps is private or permissionless.
Sure. So there's a whole slew of things. I think there will always be public internets. Bitcoin is unstoppable. Ethereum is unstoppable. And there are many others that will continue to thrive. Along the same lines, there are very important use cases for blockchain technologies within organizations. Think medical records, think privacy around DNA data, think transaction information, financial transactions, education records, all these different things benefit from crypto platforms. And organizations, countries, businesses can use blockchain technologies on a permissioned basis so that they can manage their ecosystems more specifically. There are any number of different reasons why groups of organizations would want to do this. I think benefiting from the advancements in the blockchain ecosystem allows organizations to build better systems. really what blockchain technologies are networks that synchronize with each other. So when you have distributed organizations or distributed businesses, think the shipping and logistics industry, for example. You may have an IoT device on a ship that's doing some things, and there might be some monitoring on that ship. And as it gets in and out of satellite range or within 5G range, it may synchronize some data. That's just a low latent network. But there's some more future, super interesting things that will happen around autonomous vehicles, for example. There might be a car company that has a fleet of vehicles, and those vehicles may need ultra low latency inter-vehicle communication to paint digital cones on the road so that they can navigate, right? Those are best done with decentralized networks, blockchain networks. The centralized internet doesn't really help with ultra low latency device or IoT device to IoT device communication. The blockchain ecosystem is rife with abundant opportunities to do advanced things. When we think about what Tesla's doing around robotics, or Boston Dynamics, or any of these companies that are doing robotic systems, they will be using blockchain technologies to communicate between these different layers.
And indeed, I was seeing a form of yours, maybe from last year, and you were talking about having information in one ecosystem and then transferring that information to the other one. How do we do that?
Sure. We're very lucky. The ecosystem of open source allows for a lot of advancements, and the Hyperledger Foundation, which is a project out of the Linux Foundation, hosts many very interesting projects. One of the ones that I find most interesting that's going to create a tremendous amount of Lego bricks to build the future on is a project called Hyperledger Firefly. It was donated by a company called Kaleido, and they do amazing things, but Hyperledger Firefly is what's called a supernode. A supernode allows for organizations to build on top of multiple blockchains. It allows organizations to have smart contracts and exchange tokens within the platform or platforms. An example, let's say CAPATEC, for example. Let's say that the various organizations within CAPATEC wanted to create a publishing platform where they're storing some documents on IPFS, the interplanetary file system, and they had some voting about what is going to be released and published on a website. You could have organization one, let's call it Oracle. They have their token and they vote on what they want to see published. Organization two, that's my company, CoinSA, we vote and say, yeah, we like that article, and we use our tokens for our on-chain permissioned blockchain to express what we want to see happen. Now, this primitive works exceptionally well for any number of situations. Like Latinex could build a supernode that hosts many different companies that are on the exchange, and they could, have their own tokens. They can have their own projects. Each entity can have their own NFTs. Each entity can have various digital documents. Each entity can say, okay, we have this overriding set of smart contracts that are, define the regulatory environment for the entire exchange. But within each organization, they may have smart contracts that adjudicate against them. And to answer your question, what if company one was on, let's say, Solana, company two was on Ethereum, company three is on some other blockchain that is different? Well, the pluggable system of Hyperledger Firefly allows for new blockchains to be added and built into the overall supernode and you can still have smart contracts that adjudicate them within them. This is taking advantage of what's called the Ethereum virtual machine to build on top of multiple blockchains.
That's very interesting, because now that you mentioned, we are, for example, in the case of Panama, we are used to having just one platform and everybody comes into this platform. But with what you're telling me is that issuers, each one of them can have their ecosystem and management as you wish, and still they can connect to our main Hyperledger platform where they can deal with the other participants. That's amazing. And in that same sense, what else can we do with blockchain? What else do you see that we can do here in Panama, for example?
Sure. I mean, for Panama, I think it's, I'm fortunate to be part of the Ethereum ecosystem, and let me explain. I'm blockchain agnostic, but I think that Ethereum is doing some really important things that are driving the ecosystem forward. Some of the important things that unlock the potential for Panama. Let me unpack this a little bit. So there's a couple of things. I think that organizations, be them small companies, large companies, community groups, schools, entire neighborhoods, are going to be powered or enabled by decentralized autonomous organizations. Think of these things as groups or small groups of people, right? Now, DAOs, which are commonly referred to, are designed around community. They typically have a treasury, they typically have a membership, and they typically have a way for the members to vote on proposals. There's a couple of organizations in Panama that are looking at using these primitives for sports clubs. Canal Sports Hub, actually. I'm very proud that one of the gentlemen that I did from the City of Knowledge, who's been building this ecosystem to support the various networks of athletes, young athletes from 5 years old up through professional. And some of the things that you can do with a DAO is you can build a set of community infrastructure so you can manage a treasury. And this is what a blockchain primitive allows you to do. You have the transparency of a treasury, so you can collect resources, you can pull it together, and then the community can vote on what to do. Now, there are many different blockchains. The reasons why Ethereum is important is because there's a couple of different things that Ethereum is really leading on. And we can talk about some other blockchains, but with Ethereum, there is a new project called Sign In with Ethereum. And what Sign In with Ethereum is it allows for social login. So using things like your email address or your WhatsApp address or Discord server or just your Ethereum account, which is MetaMask or whatever. Typically today, when people think about blockchain projects, you have to manage a bunch of complex things. Signing with Ethereum allows for the complexity to be delayed. Now, the delay of the complexity means that you can let somebody log into a crypto economic account without them dealing with the crypto economic side of things, right? So that unlocks a lot of potential for Panama. To answer your question, what's next for Panama? Panama is going to be, in my opinion, I've already seen evidence of this, the place where a lot of people in the world build their DAOs from. So I've been a big believer of this, and I participate in the DAO working group that is trying to create standards for DAOs. And there's lots of interesting reasons why Panama is a really good place to build DAOs from. We don't need to dive into all those today, but suffice to say that Panama, even without a crypto law, is a friendly place for blockchain economic systems. Now, blockchain economic systems means we have a lot of responsibility. And I take my role within the CAPATEC ecosystem and in the technology ecosystem in general to help organizations build good projects that benefit from good sound principles. There's a whole new field of research called token engineering that allows organizations to design projects that can be verified, tested, reviewed, both from an auditing perspective. You can audit the code, but you can also use Monte Carlo simulations to test to see whether or not these systems make sense. Now, what does that all mean? It means that you might have a DAO. Let's say you have a football club, a bunch of people that say they want to play football, and that DAO may issue NFTs, right? And these NFTs might be digital cards for the players. And they might have a calendar, right? And they may have a process by which they have a token to raise money for that entity. With token engineering, you can model all of this in software, and you can make this part of your white paper so that everyone can review it, you can test it out, you can use some software to see how this system works. And a lot of this thinking comes from the field of game design. Playing video games, like if you played Call of Duty, like you can get a gun, you can get a different thing, you can level up. The game design industry has transferred over to token design so that we can design crypto-economic systems using robust engineering principles so that we can know whether or not the economic model makes sense for a treasury that's issuing an NFT, that's doing a thing. Several years ago, there was the ICO boom where people said, okay, I have a white paper, I want to do X, I'm going to produce 10 billion tokens that do something, and I might do something later on. The new standard is that we can engineer that a little bit better today. And I think that's where the world is. I feel like I've gone off track, but I hope I answered your question.
No, of course. I like that you bring that up about the ICOs, because I think that in a great way, these fraudulent ICOs in some cases are the ones that bring bad name to crypto, to the sense that we were talking before. You mentioned crypto here in Panama, and people associating with other things that are not the essence of the technology. So what would you say someone who is perhaps under that misconception that crypto is only for fraud or for things that are not within the law?
Fair enough. First, I'll have to say I'm not an attorney and I'm not a financial advisor. I think that there's many opportunities for people to succeed in buying into meme coins and these types of projects. Whether or not they make sense, whether or not they're fraud, that's not for me to say. There's this term called a rug pull, where sometimes there's a project that's being marketed and there's nothing really to it, and the rug pull is when somebody puts money into something and believes there might be something there, and then people disappear, right? That's always a risk. I think it's always important for people in Panama or anywhere in the world to be very careful as to how they invest. I think that it's important to understand what it is that you're participating in. And, if you care about something, you should look at the details and be hesitant to simply rush into something that is a make money quick perspective. I think that Panama has a really interesting role in the world where it comes to crypto economic systems. I say that we as in humanity discover that we can take gold and we can use it for microprocessors, for circuitry and all these types of things. It went from simply being a rare element to something that was uniquely useful. I think today we have an opportunity to take blockchain technologies and build something that will remain uniquely useful. We talked about digital scarcity. And what we're doing with crypto economic systems is creating digitally scarce things that will last a long time. And when you think about what's possible, think about a smart contract. We've in Panama, there's a couple of different organizations that deal with assets, trusts. There's a Panama Private Interest Foundation. concept which allows for entities to design their entity structure so they're extremely long-term. Imagine a Panama Private Interest Foundation as a vehicle for a DAO, right? And this Panama Private Interest Foundation that holds the intellectual property or real-world property for these DAOs is a very powerful concept that I'm a big fan of, and a lot of other folks that are looking at DAOs and crypto economic systems are. One of the things that you can do if you have a crypto economic system is you can plan for the future. Imagine you have a smart contract that stretches out 10 years, 50 years. What happens when you have a group of people that say, we want to design a community that's going to invest in education in Cologne or education in Chiriquí, and we're going to contribute to this entity, we're going to put it into the treasury, and we're going to map this over a long period of time, and we have the ability to review everyone's participation, we have the ability to be really transparent. And what happens is that in Panama and in the world, one of the reasons why everyone is so passionate about blockchain is because the fiat ecosystems fail to allow for proper managing of the climate. They fail to allow for some laws to work out. And what a lot of folks are interested in is not a one-off solution for anything, but the opportunity to design a better world. Allowing enterprises, we talked earlier about private blockchains. I was involved in a project where we looked at using private blockchains to manage ESG materiality reporting. It's one of the big things that's happening in the world. A lot of organizations are having to provide reports on their upstream and downstream entities that they do business with. Not all organizations are really anxious to put all this on the public blockchain, and public blockchains aren't really ready to handle all of this volume. With zero knowledge proofs, we'll be able to have more scalability, but today, some organizations may want to do their internal reporting on a private blockchain and share that with their private partners. It's a really massive use case that I think will play out and be one of the important use cases for blockchain technologies.
And it's interesting because right now in Panama, from the Senate Ministry of Environment, I believe in a few months we will be having a taxonomy for the reporting of ESG matters here in Panama. And doing this application that you just mentioned, having an ecosystem where all the participants can share the information and perhaps in that same ecosystem report their information to the regulator would be a great case of use case for this type of technology.
Absolutely. One of a good friend of my family and someone that we do some projects with, they are in the Panama ecosystem and they're in the circular economy. And one of the things that we looked at with them is how to design smart contracts that tie together the farmers to their suppliers to their distributors. We started this path some time ago. We spent some time in the Cardano ecosystem trying to see if their smart contract technology made sense. And this is where we ran into some challenges and had to rethink how we went about things because of some of the regulatory environments in the United States. Earlier I mentioned, the current United States infrastructure bill says that a smart contract that runs over 24 hours is the future of security, right? Now imagine a smart contract for the circular economy where it says, if you are a distributor for, let's say, Coca-Cola, and you get a special pricing if you don't have environmental access, you're not polluting, right? So these incentives that are in the smart contract need to be looked at, and if you go against that smart contract, then we roll back those incentives, right? So these are some of the things that these are super exciting use cases that we're going to see much more of, and to do these things well, we're going to need IoT devices. We're going to need, it's called, when we talk about multiple blockchains,
Yes.
it's multi-chain blockchain applications. And that's really one of the most exciting aspects of blockchain technologies that I'm seeing. In particular, multi-chain DAO applications. And it's super exciting. There's lots to talk about there, but
yeah, for example, on the side of finance, we now have some financial instruments linked to sustainability, the sustainability-linked bonds. And with what you just mentioned, it's interesting because we can have an ecosystem where your partner is doing all the reporting of their KPIs, of all the ESG KPIs, and based on those KPIs, then the smart contract for the bond will assign what they're paying for the bond. They're paying 5% or 4%, 7%, you name it. Which is a process that we have to do right now, but it's pretty manual. Manual in the sense that we have to send emails and validate the information, usually on a physical form. But having this access to multiple platforms and being able to blend them through the hyperlink that you just mentioned, that's ideal.
Yeah, there's this particular organization, Chainlink. They specialize. So one of the things that you're referring to is the use of oracles or off-chain data sources.
Okay.
So that you can.
You call it oracles.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Data oracles.
Uh-huh.
So a data oracle might be a satellite data, right? A data oracle might be coming from other databases. It might be traffic database. It might be reports on how much pollutants are in the ocean. An oracle might just be some scores for a baseball game. Using smart contracts that access these data sets. There are some Chainlink I mentioned. They allow for multiple data sources to be used to do smart contracts. But there's so many different ways of looking at these multi-chain approaches. So when we talk about Web3, the typical application, I know it's great that you guys are doing a hackathon. The typical Web3 application. Let me back up a little bit to paint the picture of one of the reasons I came back home to Panama. And
I was just about to do that.
Why I'm so passionate about this space. When I was very young, my cousin asked me, "Tell me about a video game you want to play," and I couldn't speak English, and I was delighted by the idea that with my brain I could do something. I asked my father to buy me a computer. My father said, "I don't know." My grandmother said, "Don't get him a computer because you can't even speak English." So I got a paper out and bought my own. And I learned English and some technology. What that unlocked for me was the ability to think about, what can I build? And early on, I was really lucky. A lot of the folks that I went to school with, they were part of an organization called Art Technology Group. And at ATG, we were one of the companies that built the early technologies in the Java application space. So we built session management, dynamic server pages, and the abstractions of data sets. And all this technology is now part of Oracle. And we used it to do personalization engines, advertising technology, all sorts of things. But the important thing that we did at ATG was we built Lego bricks of technology primitives that could be assembled to build applications. So that's where we are today in the blockchain ecosystem. Is we're racing to build Lego bricks of reproducible code chunks that we can build applications from. So when we talk about Web3 applications today, you typically are dealing with simple applications that don't necessarily benefit from session management. A session is when somebody can log in and they can look at their own account. Right now, the typical Web3 application is a MetaMask wallet connected, and you're just authenticating and you have the wallet. You're not necessarily getting personalization, right? The next phase of this personalization is really exciting. It's called self-sovereign identity. And this is when your session goes with you, the person, and you're storing your session information or your personal information in this self-sovereign identity information. So a really good use case of this might be in education, or in finance, where let's say you have a mortgage, you bought a house, and your financial information is in this session that is connected to you, but it's not on a centralized server. And when you go to, let's say you go to a bank and you deal with them, and then let's say you want to move that information to an insurance provider, you can express the information regarding that transaction to the insurance provider without, giving them everything. This decentralization thing. I could talk about it.
To go deeper into that matter, how do you do the transfer, let's say, going to the same example, from the bank to the insurance company? Do you need to have something physical in you that you can present them? How is it?
Yeah, so, using cryptoeconomic principles, in the general term, we're really talking about using cryptography. And cryptography, on the very basic level, is encoding information so that it's only viewable by the persons or entities that you want to see it.
Okay.
So when you have an encrypted data set, let's say your financial information or your educational record, and you want to share it with another person, you can give them keys so that you can unlock that piece of data just for that.
Okay. And also getting into that same realm, when we talk about, for example, if you have a wallet with X amount of coins or with X amount of tokens, right now I understand that you have two ways of storing them. You can either have it on a physical form or through your hot wallet. Why do you think that for so long we have been working to have everything digital and now we're going back to having something physical?
Well, let me unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
So it's complicated, but not super. So there's a concept, like if you have a hardware wallet, a hardware wallet is using something called a heuristically deterministic wallet, or you're creating a set of addresses that can be mapped to your encryption keys, right? And that allows you to create Ethereum addresses, Bitcoin addresses, etc. Now, that is one way of dealing with crypto. Now, for each different crypto project, you can have your different keys. But then there's this other thing. You can have what's happening in the Ethereum space is called account abstraction. Account abstraction is a new standard that is allowing the Ethereum ecosystem to sort of manage crypto identities that can be connected to social ID so that it can be recovered. Okay. So there's a whole lot of things that are happening in the crypto space. One of the big challenges, and just getting back to the ecosystem here in Panama, one of the things that are important, and this is true for Panama, true for the world, we need to make it easier for the next billion users of crypto to use crypto. And we can start by not calling it crypto. Yep. But when we call it crypto, we make it seem mysterious.
Yep.
What we're really talking about is new networks. So blockchains and crypto are creating networks of new technologies. The way I like to think about the future, and the way I think Latinex will play out, is that you're going to see as many tokens and crypto assets as you see shares of stocks on various stock exchanges. Like where you see Nike today, you're going to see a project that is going to be listed somewhere. And it seems like that could be too many, but not really. I think there's going to be, we're going to benefit from artificial intelligence helping us manage these vast amount of crypto assets and wallets, and we're going to use technology to figure out, how do we, you might have a token that gives you access to your condo building, your home. You may have a token that gives you access to your, newspaper. You may have a token or a security token that you have as an investment vehicle to a retirement fund. Mm-hmm. You may have a token that gives you access to almost anything. You know, these systems are very still at the early stages, and you know the way we access them with, you know, you asked, you know, we're going backwards, or whether or not it's a hardware thing or a software thing.
Yep.
This is an opportunity for technology organizations and for investors to invest in platforms that are making them better and easier to use. Hopefully, as with you know, regular internet technology, the complexity goes away, and we're just using the technology, and it becomes magical.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going to play out.
It's super exciting. And just to have some final thoughts, why Panama? Why do you think Panama is the most exciting place to be right now in terms of what we do?
Well, I think there are many reasons. You know, I was really lucky to you know, live in many technology hubs: San Francisco, New York, Miami, Mexico, Brazil, parts of Europe, and you know, as a technologist, I have used many interesting things, and I think that this next wave of technology innovation is going to come from Latin America for a number of different reasons. I think the stories, you know, ultimately, you know, the world is about stories. The stories we tell about ourselves, the stories we tell about each other. And there's a book called Winning the Story Wars. You know, the culture of Latin America and our ability to share and express ourselves is something that is now becoming more accessible. And the same things that drove me to technology are going to drive countless other people to want to innovate. And when a young Panamanian understands that they can take a Raspberry Pi and they can, you know, go to a hackathon and unlock an unlimited future, you know, that's going to be, you know, something that they're going to hop on. And we're already seeing that in places like Venezuela, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico. We're seeing that everywhere, and that's going to keep playing out. And where, you know, the United States today, there's some challenges. You know, it's not a perfect place, despite what people believe. If you've lived in San Francisco, you've seen some challenges, and I think the next wave of innovation is going to come from the people that can be most passionate about it, and I think that's going to be a place like that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, that's all we have for today. It was a great talk. Me personally, I have learned a lot, and I have also debunked some misconceptions that I had before. So always great talking to you, Steven, and thank you very much for being here with us.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Vale, muchas gracias a todos por acompañarnos en el capítulo de hoy. La verdad, como vieron, el contenido sumamente interesante. Nosotros estaremos tirando contenido parecido a este en temas tecnológicos a través del mes de junio y de julio. Obviamente también en conmemoración de nuestro hackathon, primera agencia de mercado de capitales, llamado Acceso al Mercado de Capitales. Para esto agradecemos nuevamente a nuestros patrocinadores, Ciudad del Saber, Banco General y CAPATEC, CAPAMEC. Muchas gracias a todos y mucho comentario.
Esto fue el podcast de Latinex, la mejor conexión para tu inversión.